Welcome to Fandom
and Wellness,
a podcast about the complex relationship between fandom and mental health.
Disclaimer, we are not psychiatrists or psychologists. We are just fangirls with a vested interest in mental health. On this episode, we'll be discussing X-Men Dark Phoenix.
Wow.
So...
Alright, let's do this. So, I wanted to talk, I think a problem of this series is that it's barely a coherent, consistent series in terms of, like, each movie is kind of like its own movie and they don't really connect.
Right.
Yeah, do you think that's because they came out kind of pretty big gaps between them?
Yes, and I'm sure there was like turmoil behind the scenes, creative differences, stuff like that. Yeah, and it's like, the first movie I really enjoyed. The second one was kind of a weird amalgamation of both the old X-Men series and then the new one.
Are you talking about Days of Our Future Past?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's preface this. So we're really focusing on the Dark Phoenix specifically, but we'll reference to the other movie. So if you haven't seen that, we would recommend you watch it. And it goes X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Our Future Past, Apocalypse, and now Dark Phoenix.
Right.
So,
and then we get introduced to the new cast of X-Men
right.
in the third movie of this 4-movie series,
yes.
which is very late in the game, right? So, I feel like a lot of the problems with this movie, especially, is a lack of character development, inability to focus on, like, fully develop any character very well.
Like, for example, I'm gonna preface this saying I grew up watching the X-Men, the animated series. Like, it's something I grew up watching every day after school. Like, I ran home, watched it, weekends, I was watching it. So it was like, these are characters that were developed fully. You got to know their story arcs. You got to know who they were as a person and how they interacted with each other and all these other things. And when we finally got to X-Men Apocalypse and, like, Days of Our Future Past, and they slowly introduced all these new characters.
Days of Our Future Past or just Days of Future Past?
Yeah, it's Days of Future Past.
It shouldn't make me laugh because it sounds like a soap opera.
It does sound like I think I'm getting it confused because I read another science fiction book that was also all of our wrong todays, and, like, I mixed them up interchangeably.
No, it's okay.
That's okay.
It's just making me giggle. It's the only reason
It's ours. This belongs to us. I've literally been saying Days of Our Future Past for years.
Whoops.
Nobody's ever corrected me.
It's okay.
They're all fake to keep people then if they can't correct me.
Anyway.
But you and I, when we did our panel at AwesomeCon, you and I talked about how the X-Men animated series is the first time we felt represented in a fandom.
Yes. And not even just having that connection, but it's like you have these connections to these characters. And for example, I will say Scott Summers in this new film. I have no idea who this character is. And this is me growing up with Scott Summers and knowing who he is in the X-Men animated series. So, like, we get to this movie and we know that his brother dies. And then that's it.
Wait, I just need to talk about this one line because I have nowhere else to talk about this in this entire episode. But
okay.
We just need to talk about Scott Summers dropping that hard F. Being, like, the only curse in the whole movie.
It was so good. I loved it.
Jenny and I were together. And I was like, that was the one F-bomb they could use.
I was like, did they do that to make this movie not a PG rating? They were like, let's just have an F-bomb.
I don't think it could have been PG anyway.
Yeah, couldn't have, but
they're like, we have one, so we might as well use it.
You only get one to keep
it felt so weird. I'm sorry.
I know it was hilarious. It was hilarious in a non-funny movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's okay. I just needed to briefly talk.
Yes,
talk about that one F-bomb.
You're right, but like with the character development, me as someone who's grown up watching Scott Summers, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Not to say he did a bad job acting it. I just feel like with the writing and me getting to know and understand and like connect with this character, it wasn't there, and I was confused.
Right.
Also, I think maybe I'm just biased because I love James Marsden so much. But even that Scott Summers, you got to know pretty well too, and they had
well, because you knew him over the course of at least 3 movies,
right?
But yeah, and so like let's for example talk about Charles Xavier.
Oh, you mean who this movie's about?
The thing is, I barely remember him in this movie.
What?
That's why I barely remember him.
Were we sitting in the same theater?
He had more lines than Jean Grey did.
He did, yes. And it makes sense to me that they want to continue his and Eric's kind of like storyline because this is where it is with them that it started.
Yeah.
But also, he's such a fucking dick in this movie.
Yeah, it really, played into a little stereotype of, like, if you're disabled or in a wheelchair, which we talked about in the Glass episode, if you're in a wheelchair, you're going to be evil. If you're in a superhero movie.
I think he did something wrong. I don't think he's obviously he's not evil, but he did something wrong. And I think there's a difference between someone doing something wrong / I don't think he's even demonized, but someone doing something wrong and they happen to be disabled versus they're portrayed as doing something wrong, kind of like related to their disability. I think in Glass and Split, and Unbreakable, their disability plays a very important role in why they are the way they are.
Okay.
This does too, in that it's made him a bit of an angry person, but like, or at least in like Days of Future Past, but like, that was more like anger related to his injury, while this is more him wanting to protect.
Yeah. He's not necessarily evil, but he is super manipulative, and I don't know. That's just when you don't have yourself represented in anything, and all your representations are you're evil. You're either a villain or you're manipulative or you're. I don't know. It's not a good look.
No, I agree with you on that. It is not a good look when you're looking for representation in yourself, and it's not often in a positive light. And I think outside of the scope of this film, that's why so many people loved Charles Xavier, was because he did try to always bring good to a situation, but in this case, he made several wrong life choices that led up to this point that he could not admit to himself that were wrong. Whether or not that has to do with him being in the wheelchair, I don't know, but I will say when it comes to representation, that yes, that does seem very, like, a very touching thing to see yourself represented that way.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see him as, like, really that manipulative.
And I disagree with you, because in this film I did, like, the entire time that I was watching it, I was like, what the hell? Charles, don't do this. This is really creepy. This is very manipulative. Like, not even that it was manipulative, it was that it seemed like he was making the right decisions for himself or for a greater good that he thought he could achieve, but really wasn't ever attainable. And he was kind of deceiving himself into other people believing that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of scenes where I felt like Charles was, like, the bad guy in the movie more than I don't even know her name, the alien. Because they named her once.
Was it like Vuk or something?
Something like, yes.
Yeah, but I can, yeah, there were definitely instances where, like, he became, like, he was just wrong.
Like in this movie, like he essentially, I mean, I don't know if like lobotomized would be the correct phrase if this were like a real thing, because because in the real world you can't like psychically manipulate someone's brain. So like if this were a real world context, he essentially kind of like lobotomized her so she would forget different traumatic experiences in her life without her consent.
Right. The problem is that he chose for her, right?
Yes.
And he decided that he did what was right and what was for the greater good. And there's that theme throughout where he thinks he chooses the greater good even over the
at the mutant's expense.
Right. Yeah. Oh, at the risk of the mutants he's supposed to be protecting. But then I think he does acknowledge it in the end. He, like, that's what brings her back, right? Him acknowledging that he's wrong and that he should have never done that.
Yeah. And I think him also reminding her that he always felt like she never needed to be fixed.
Right. Which I knew that line. She's like, you can't always fix everything, and he's like, you're not broken. And I was like, it's a beautiful line, but I saw it coming from a mile away.
Really did.
Yeah. But yeah, and like, yeah. Oh, Charles. Anyway, moving on to I want to talk about Jean Grey last. Since
it's okay, the movie basically did, so.
Sorry.
Wow.
Burn. Oh God. So yeah, and then we have Eric, aka Magneto. Who's the other?
Let's focus.
Yeah, I forgot how much I liked
Michael
Fassbender as an actor, just for his acting skills.
Every review I read of this movie was like, the only reason to watch it is for Michael Fassbender. Yeah.
So he has continuous drama throughout his entire life.
Yes.
He survived concentration camps, abuse, the death of his wife and daughter. He just wants to live alone in the woods and no one will fucking let him. No one will fucking let him.
Yeah, I honestly, because I did not rewatch the other movies and I haven't seen them in many years, I don't remember why he's there. Because she goes to him for asylum, I think, at some point.
Yes.
And she basically is saying to him, like, oh, you overcame these feelings and you killed a bunch of people and now you don't want to do that anymore. I don't remember how he got there.
In the last movie.
You explain.
In the last movie, basically, he was going to help Apocalypse end the world. Okay. Or whatever.
Cool.
Do you remember why he changed his mind, Arkeida?
I think it's because he saw his son. I think it's because he saw Quicksilver.
But did he know? I don't think
he knew it was his son. Shoot. Never mind.
The thing is that I feel like
somebody got to him and he decided to part ways, and it was like
he changed his
mind. Something happened. He changed his mind. He didn't want to end the world. I mean, honestly, I understand why he would want to end the world. I think throughout the course of these films, you've really come to empathize with Magneto because of everything that he has been through, which kind of like, I don't want to say it's like showing a mirror on the country that we live in, but like it kind of is.
I mean, it's like Killmonger and Black Panther.
But, it is, yes, and you empathize with this character and sympathize with this character. So I think in his case, it's kind of how Logan was, where he just wants to be alone. Like he really feels as though him being in society is not beneficial to his mental health. It's better for him to seek asylum and take any mutants that would want that with him, because he realizes that the world that they live in is never going to accept mutants, where they are there just to be service to the humans. And like when they're on that space mission, it's like, you could get killed, how dangerous this is, and you're doing it just so that you're accepted in the human world, knowing that you're not really accepted. And he's like, I'm not going to pretend. This isn't what I want.
In in Apocalypse, he's working in a construction place, and he saves somebody using his powers, and they fucking turn on him and destroy his entire life, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my god, did I cry so much when that happened. But like, yeah, so, and it's so weird to me that he says this entire speech about about how revenge got him nowhere and did nothing for him, and then he tries to get revenge, and I'm like, what did you just fucking say?
He did love Raven, though.
I know, but like, what did you just fucking say?
He did not know that she killed him. She killed her.
I know.
It's a lot of layers, but
well, also, speaking of her going to Eric, it was interesting because Eric stopped because he could stop. He chose to stop. Jean Grey, it's a little confusing how the power works, but it feels like it's almost like this thing inside of her that she cannot control.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So it's not like, it's like
a different entity within her.
Right. It's not just like her willpower, you know? It's a little different. But before we finish talking about Jean Grey, let's talk about B/Henry/Hank.
There's too many damn Hanks in this world, okay? I'm tired of it. But
okay,
I will say, to your point of revenge not getting you anything, Hank. I say Henry B. What do I call you? You have so many goddamn names. Like, that was Hank's then turning point when Raven died, or Mystique was essentially killed by the explosion that Jean Grey caused. That was his turning point, and he left the X-Men and was ready to go kill her, and like even recruited Eric to kill her. And the entire I don't think he would have reached that point had Charles admitted that he was wrong earlier on, because there was a moment when they were sitting together in the kitchen.
That very dramatic scene.
That dramatic scene where Charles is like, "This is where I met Raven, and she became my foster sister." And like,
I mean, that was just another scene of Charles being manipulative.
Exactly. I'm like, I think that the writers did not let Hank be manipulated by that. He's like, I don't care that you met her here. I loved her. You loved her too. But essentially he's blaming him for what happened to her. And in part, I kind of do too. They should have never been on that mission in space. I'm sorry. I already don't like humans. You made an error. You fucked up. You can die. I probably am being a real asshole for this, but it's like, it is not up to mutants to put their lives on the line for human error just so that they can be accepted. And I think the reason that I feel this way is because during World War II, I know a lot of people say that the X-Men is kind of like what's that word? A metaphor for like the civil rights movement. But yeah, but like during the civil rights movement and everything, when Black people went away to the Vietnam War and came back and they still didn't have a country with rights. And I'm like, they just fought in a war for this country, came back, no rights. You're doing the same thing to these mutants. It's like you didn't learn from your history. I know this was technically the 90s, but I'm like, y'all didn't learn from this? Mm-hmm. Uprising, riots. They just want basic human rights. I know they're not, like, they're human.
Right.
Just because of the blue, like, just so.
There are a lot of blue people in the movie.
Yeah, there really are.
But there are more blue people in this movie than black people. Or, I'm sorry, there are more named blue people in this movie than black people.
Yeah.
Really? I only saw, like, I barely saw 3. I think.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Yes.
All right. I think he Charles should have admitted to his mistakes.
He should have. And
these movies are so... I don't think they should have done this movie at all, which we'll talk about later. But, like, because if they wanted to stick so strictly to this script that they have built about, like, Xavier's higher purpose for the X-Men, they just shouldn't have done a Dark Phoenix movie. Like, that's not what the Dark Phoenix saga is about at all.
Right.
Well, we'll get back to what it is about.
Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, like, every action in this movie was basically about, like, Charles, like, the narrative of, like, Charles having to form like a peace pact for the X-Men to survive.
You know, I'm like, what even happened in this movie? I don't, it's like, you're like, a lot happened with Charles. I'm like, I don't remember any of it. Cause it was like, it felt like I was just meandering along.
Yes.
It was just like people following other people. And then like, it wasn't even that dramatic.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's why they had to put that hard F-bomb in there. To try to...
It was just so weird. It was just, oh god. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about Hank?
Henry?
Not in this movie. Not in this movie, other than the fact that I was like, wait, is that Scott or Hank? Because they're the same white actor.
Wait, no, they're not.
Come on, they look so much alike.
No, they don't. Scott looks like a pouty teenage model.
His lips are so full.
Yeah, they are. I was like, where'd you come from with those lips? Like, what you been doing? You did that Kylie Jenner challenge?
Hank didn't look pouty. Okay.
And Hank was the kid from Skins.
They are the same person.
They aren't. You can't say that all people look like.
All white men look the same.
Well, you're married to one.
Other than Michael Fassbender.
They don't have much personality, and that's a problem.
I know. That's why I was like, wait, which one's?
Yeah. But anyway,
But yes, so to wrap up Hank and his decision to seek revenge and then no longer seek revenge on Jean Grey because of Charles. It essentially was all because of Charles.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jean. What?
Oh, wow. Okay, sure.
We're getting there real fast.
Faster than the movie.
So, what did you want to say about Jean?
I will say one of the biggest things for me with Jean was that I see her and like when the walls are finally come down from her mind, like she's able to see everything that's happened to her in totality. She's experiencing PTSD all at once.
Right.
Like all at once. In my mind, I'm like, Charles, were you not prepared for this? Like you did this to this child. At some point, she's going to regain these memories. How are you going to deal with it then when she's an adult? Like the best point in time, again, this is coming back to Charles, for you to have dealt with this was as a child, because like so many doctors say, kids are more resilient than you think. And I don't want to say that just because she had this tragic accident happen to her that like, oh yeah, she'll be fine, it'll be all rainbows and sunshine. But like you heard him blocking that memory out of her mind and forgetting she had parents and forgetting all of this. It's like,
right. Like he could have even done it earlier.
Yes.
Sometime when she was more of an adult.
Right.
When she could maybe handle it more, you know?
Right. It's not even like she was still young, but it's like we need to have this conversation. You're a child. Like it's not fair to her in any way for the loss of her memories. It's not fair for her to have to experience all of this all at once. It's not fair that Raven is like, we have 10 seconds. We need to be out of here. We can't do this. That one person that had to come back. I counted it. I was like, oh, y'all got 4 people. Win-win situation. One person still. I'm like, you got enough. You got enough humans, all right?
Right. It wasn't worth risking literally everybody.
It really wasn't. And then it's not even like you risked everyone's lives, and now Jean Grey's life is harder because of it. And now she's gone, right. And Raven's gone, and no one wanted to listen to Raven, because Raven for the entire fucking time was like, peace out, gang, I don't want to do this.
I feel like this movie just, like, didn't show the complexities of Jean Grey's emotions at all. Like, she's, like, in her early 20s or whatever, she gets this, like, other, like, power source entity, essentially, like, fused into her. And she's saying, like, how good she feels from it. But they don't actually develop on that at all.
Was it just me, or did she seem kind of horny when
So, like, part of the actual Dark Phoenix saga is, like, playing into, like, Jean's sexuality. Which is, like, what they, like, half-assed tried to do here.
I didn't even pick that up. I was like, she
seemed like she wanted to get down for a bit.
She did, but I feel like that's just
she was like hardcore making out with Scott Hank.
Scott Hank.
I felt like that was just youthful energy to begin with. I don't know.
No, it was them. No, it was them just like bastardizing an entire comic book series. But
wow,
they didn't give
that was like so quick. It just happened like that.
Right, they didn't give it much time.
They didn't expound on why she even fucking cared about like her dad still existing. Like they didn't. Like,
well, I mean, when you, I feel like that's self-explanatory, though, right?
In my mind, I don't even know.
Like you realize your dad's alive, so you go.
She went straight to him. You're like, yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Why would you? Why wouldn't you go to Charles and be like, yo, you're my adoptive father. Is my dad alive?
Well, here's the thing. She does... the thing is that I don't want to say it's out of character, because we barely know her as a character, but, like, she does a lot of things that are, like, super weirdly kind of villain-like for no reason. Right?
Yeah.
She goes off on her own. She, like, she hurts people. Like, for example, she hurts Nightcrawler for a lot, like, for no reason.
That
a lot of like at least twice.
That one hurt my feelings a lot.
Right, I'm like, why would you do that? He hasn't done anything to you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, I understand that it's like, okay, because she has this great power that she can't control.
Right, but that's that was controlled. What she did, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know when she's not controlling her powers.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm saying, like, maybe that's what, like, the movie wanted you to think or some shit. I don't know.
That makes no sense.
I didn't mean that's what... yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the movie didn't make sense, Jenny.
Well, yeah.
I just feel like they didn't expand on her emotions at all, or, like, what she was going through as the Phoenix, other than just, like, just trying to base the whole thing on like, her trauma coming to the surface.
I thought a really poignant moment, though, was when she was, like, in the rain trying to, like, wash off the blood of Raven. That hit me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That hit me a little bit, because I felt like that was raw, like, that was raw emotion, and she, like, her realizing that's okay to portray all of that confusion and, like, and fear, but that's all she, like,
yeah, but that was, like,
portrays.
the only, like, glimpse into her even being, like, confused.
Yeah, that's the only bit of emotional depth that we really got out of her. Because everything else, it just seemed like after the entity, and after she becomes one with the entity, all you get is just high anxiety and her not knowing, and her not knowing, and her not knowing. And it's like, she's experiencing other emotions. Why aren't we showing this? Like, she's not a two-dimensional or one-dimensional character. Like, she's experiencing all these complexities that are happening in her life and in her mind, and why aren't they portraying this? You only see a glimpse of her hypersexuality. You only see a glimpse of her feeling like an ecstatic high, and then after that, it's like all sadness and all stress and anxiety. And it's like, there's more. There's way more.
Right.
Yeah, and like, I don't understand why she would just all of a sudden, like, believe and go with whatever that alien woman was saying.
Right?
Who she never met before, and was like,
yeah,
you're like, right, no one understands me, and Charles doesn't understand, but you understand me, person I've never met before. And I've had one conversation with.
Yeah, and literally has no facial expressions whatsoever.
Yo, Jessica Chastain was so creepy in that. Like, I was like, where are her eyebrows? Why is her hair this? I was like, she looks like an alien. Like,
but I feel like she was wasted in this. Like, her character was like a nothing villain.
Yeah.
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 Like, she looks the part of a villain and would have been an amazing villain.
Right. Well, speaking of our character actions, like...
You go. You're doing it. You wanted to do this episode, you're talking about it.
I literally said I don't want to talk about this scene, though.
So I saw this movie first, And I texted Jenny and Arkeida during this scene, and I was like, I don't know about this. I don't think I want to do this episode. There's a scene in this movie where they have Jean Grey force Xavier to walk up a flight of stairs, and it is so off-putting and tone-deaf.
Disturbing.
Why? What? Who greenlit that?
And not even, like, on top of that, to add insult to injury, she crushed his wheelchair. Did you see that? She forced him to walk up there and then crushed his wheelchair. So it's like...
And then they redeem her. That's not an action a redeemable character does right before they're redeemed.
Zuko would never. Sorry.
Like, oh my god, what a terrible thing. Let's just erase that from our minds.
Can we?
Get out of here.
No, I don't want to forget how bad this movie was.
Well,
I really want to talk about... Okay, so I'm really focused on the PTSD aspect of this, because that's essentially what she's experiencing. I already said that why did Charles not help her as a young child? But not only that, like, he knew that these walls were breaking down. Like, he went into Cerebro when he realized he couldn't hear her thoughts. Why was somebody not monitoring her? Or
like in the room with her at the same time?
Not even in the, like, there's so many instances of things that are happening where it's like, why are all four of you in this one room and she's all alone after experiencing this like, she's already now experienced 2 life traumas. Her mother passed away, she was in that car crash, and her father abandoned her. That is one whammy right there.
Mm-hmm. Got
sent into space on a near-death mission to save some unworthy-ass humans. We are unworthy. And then, like, she says she feels fine. Her vitals are great. She's, like, supercharged from it. But even then, if you overcharge a battery, something is going to explode! So...
Science.
I was trying to not say that, but there are so many moments in that movie I was like, science. Science does not explain this. And I know science is not supposed to explain everything because this is fantasy and this is fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But come on, use some basic physics, people. I know I failed physics, but like, use some of it.
All right. Do you guys want to talk about the death of Raven?
That pissed me off.
Yeah,
that did really fucking. Oh, so I agree. I feel like Raven's death that resonated the most with me. Again, back to the topic that I was saying. Like, she's like, we're doing all of this for our freedom, and we are not free, like, at all.
Raven was fridged.
Right.
Yes, essentially she was. Like, not even essentially she was. She absolutely was.
I have a question about fridging, though.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that if more main characters were female, more men would get fridged?
Nope.
No.
Maybe. I don't think. No, because I think that
because I'm thinking about Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Would you say that Marvel got fridged?
I wouldn't consider that to be fridging because, like, it's hard to explain with that movie specifically because Marvel had been murdered or killed so early on that it was kind of wiped from her memory and she doesn't necessarily remember, and she was still, like, on the way to becoming Captain Marvel.
She was already
she was already
doing what she felt to be right.
Yeah, without...
she was helping Marvel with that mission, not even knowing what the mission was, not even knowing that she was a Kree soldier, initially a Kree soldier. So she was just doing that because it was the right thing to do. Like, I don't feel like Marvel's death propelled her to be anything. Like immediately after Marvel was killed, she then destroyed the plane, the solar energy thing. Which gave Carol all her powers, but then, like, it was, like Arkeida said, it was wiped from her memory, so it's not even, like...
She already knew right from wrong before that, and she knew, like, she was already questioning things, and on her, like, she was already being developed to go that way, and I think Marvel, I think for Marvel, it was just her completing her mission and then moving on to continue doing what she was doing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that it was fridging, but I do feel that if there were more female male characters, or even like any other gender other than male, there would be way less fridging, because I feel as though, because even now, like with writing, men have male friends, like, and they're not getting fridged. It's really just women, children, love interests, and other, like, it's very. But that's what I'm saying.
The love interests of female characters might get fridged more if there were.
Wait, so you're saying if there are more female identifying characters, would more men be fridged? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I don't care if they are. Let's even the playing field.
I don't care if they are either. I'm just saying that, like, loved ones being fridged is like it's
another writing trope that's used to propel characters when you don't need it.
Like, have you seen Luke Cage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot his name, but like his father figure, basically, he died in that.
Oh my god, that was so upsetting to me.
Yeah.
Whew, that was a lot.
Would you say that's fridging?
Yes. Gender aside, I would say that is. I don't know, because it's like Luke already knew. Right, I'm considering fridging when somebody's like, I don't know which road I'm gonna take. It's like, you don't know which road you're gonna take, or like, you've decided to not do this anymore, and then the bad thing happens, and that's what's like motivating you. Like, if you've already had that motivator, and you already knew right from wrong, and you already kind of knew what path you were taking, that's...
Are you sure Luke was going to do that?
I don't remember.
Regardless.
I don't remember if he was already using his powers when the barber got killed.
It's been a while. Yeah, I just thought I would bring it up just because it's something I've been thinking about. But yeah, so basically Raven dies to motivate Hank and Eric to want revenge on Jean. Right?
Yeah. No, yeah.
And then Jean dies too. She evolves, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that means. She's still alone. Everyone's still missing her. You know what I mean?
Also, the random unnamed character of color, the woman of color from Magneto's team, just gets
it was a woman and a man. Yeah,
just gets pulled off the train by her head for literally no reason.
I was like, I don't know how you do that. How do you hold someone that way?
I was shocked. It was like
zero reason to include that.
They should have not died. There was no reason for them to die.
They didn't even show if she died or not. It's just gone.
She's dead.
No, she's 100%. I guess 100% she's dead. Basically, every character in this movie that passed the Bechdel test, which is the test that is two women who are named who talk about something other than a man, every one of them dies. I don't think Storm talks to another female identifying character in this movie.
She speaks to Raven at one point.
Cool. Well,
pretty sure, but like
about what? I don't remember.
About Jean.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But still, like...
Yeah. It's interesting that...
That's a word.
It's... Interesting can mean a lot of things.
Sure.
Part of me is wondering, because I feel like First Class was so long ago that it doesn't even matter what happened between them and like all the Sentinels and everything. Like, what if they had just started with Dark Phoenix and then went on from there? Because eventually Jean Grey does come back, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, like what if they started the series with Dark Phoenix, hopefully with better writers, but what if they started there and like continued on? Like,
it wasn't the story they were not ever interested in telling the Dark Phoenix saga. That was not the story they wanted to tell. They wanted to tell a story, more stories about Charles and Eric. That's what they wanted.
But it's like, how many more stories can you tell about them that we don't?
They wanted to be part of the Me Too movement and like thinking that they were this revolutionary movie that was all about a woman. But they had a male director, a male writer, like
the scene where Raven is like, you ever thought about changing the name to X-Woman? Because it's always, I was like, we didn't need this! Like, if there was ever a part where I'm like, are you pandering and doing this wrong? Because you're really doing this wrong.
You can tell she did not want to say that line. Jennifer really Lawrence was like, please don't make me say this.
It was like,
please don't do it.
Like that is, in my mind, male writing, thinking, this is what women want, right?
This is what a feminist will say.
Want. No, we want you to think these characters through fully.
They took Captain Marvel and made it bad. They're like, let's have a movie about how a woman's emotions are so evil and, like, make her do all wrong. And how, like, she can't control them. But then in the end, she's like, no, my emotions are what make me strong.
Except that...
But we didn't even see her emotions, because they didn't develop her at all.
I mean, we did see some emotions, but they didn't make her any better. Like, they didn't make her... Like, they didn't
become her redemption arc was not... It wasn't even a full arc. It, like, stopped halfway, and it was like, and now she's a phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Fail bomb. Why we need women.
Really?
I mean, other than we should just have women directors and writers.
Exactly, like, why?
Just because. But also, if you're going to write a story about extreme trauma experienced by a woman, maybe, I don't know, go to any type of, like, trauma counseling or inquire what a woman even thinks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, the death of Jean Grey and of Raven, it's like you had two very strong female characters and they're both dead. And it's like, it's possible to have more than one strong female character at a time and they both be strong together within the same scene. But, like, to your point, when it was the Dark Phoenix or when it was Jean Grey, like, going through her thing after visiting her dad, it was Raven that had to be soft and coddle her. But, like, it's like they flipped.
I don't understand Raven in this movie at all. She's like a non-character.
She really was a non-character. She was gone in like 10 minutes.
Yep. And I thought it's weird that Charles is later able to get through to Jean with compassion and understanding, but when Raven tries it, it gets her dead, which sucks a lot.
Because the male in the movie had to save the day.
Yeah.
And I think what would have made this a little bit more interesting was if it wasn't Charles that came to save the day. And it would have showed like a more human side of him. Like, you're not always going to succeed. Like, not everything you do is going to work. You're not always going to be the hero. Like, give that title to somebody else. Like, it could, honestly... It could have been Eric. It could have been Raven had they kept her around. It could have been Hank. It could have been anybody that brought her back, but it had to be Charles, and it really did not.
Well, they needed to redeem him.
Right.
Eye rolls. All the eye rolls. All the eye rolls.
Yeah. This movie essentially, to me, says that if you experience great trauma, the only way you're going to heal from it is to die. She dies. She lets herself die. And Charles says now she's free.
Did not like that because...
Like, or how about you counsel her? Like, an actual adoptive father. Like, how about you, like, actually work through the problems that she is facing that you know, essentially caused by blockading her from knowing her parents died. Or one of her parents died.
No, it's upsetting because it's like you have all these resources at your tip. It's not like he was poor and he was like, I don't know what to do. Like, you're not poor.
Just send her somewhere if you don't want to do it.
Batman. You're somewhere between the range of Batman and Tony Stark in terms of money. Like,
I don't know. I think Batman has more money, but
probably. You know what? They all come. Well, except for Tony Stark, he's nouveau rich, but. Charles and Batman come from old money. Get it together.
Can you, Danielle, talk a little bit about what happens in the comics?
Yeah. Like I keep saying, like, I don't feel like this movie is about the Dark Phoenix saga at all. I mean, yes, like, they the X-Men go to space, and she gets her powers through, like, a cosmic flare, kind of similarly to this movie, except she's not, like, saving humans. It's like other X-Men. Like, it's just immediately the movie is trying to make it about their narrative of Xavier trying to make peace with humans. So she gets this power, and then she basically repairs, like, a fractured crystal with it, and she saves the universe. So she doesn't, like...
From what?
I honestly don't even remember, but it's just, like... It's just that, like, she doesn't immediately, like, use her powers, like, for evil, or, like, become, like, this totally confused person. She uses her powers to save everyone.
I think,
like,
within that, she's still learning to control the power.
Yes, she doesn't realize, like, the full extent of her powers yet.
Yeah. But she realizes she has more power, that's a thing.
Yes.
Does she, like, quote-unquote become evil or whatever?
So she uses this power, and then Mastermind, who basically is, like, I guess, like, an old villain in the comic book series that can put, like, illusions into people's heads, or, like, and, like, with the help of Emma Frost, he's able to, like, implant memories into Jean's head that aren't real, about basically, like, them as a romantic couple.
Ew. Okay.
Yeah. So Mastermind basically, like, he takes notice of Jean because of these powers, and he wants to get into, like, the inner circle of the Hellfire Club, which is, like, the ultimate baddies. So he's basically, like, he is gaslighting her and causing a bunch of trauma to her. They have sex at one point, that's basically him raping her.
Yep.
Because she doesn't know, like, she's believing these images in her head. And so he's basically trying to turn her into the Dark Queen, and because she is going along with these illusions, she starts to, like, embrace her like, evil side. And she's like, okay, this is cool. I like where this power is taking me. Like, the X-Men were, like, presumed dead, but then they come back. I don't know.
Sure.
It's whatever. It's like all shit with this.
It's a whole saga.
It's a whole
right?
fucking saga, but they try to do it in one little movie. Whatever. So the X-Men come back, and she's, like, reunited with Scott. But she has already started embracing, like, these, like, evil powers. So she's, like, using her powers, like, with, like, less inhibition. Like, Scott told her to, like stop a car that had a bunch of villains in it, and instead she, like, demolished the car. And she was like, well, I'm, like, a psychic, and I can tell, I knew what they were thinking, and, like, what the person they were chasing was fearing, and all this stuff. But,
like, she's making the God decision. Like, I can choose to end life. Or, like, you're like, this is your judgment. Your judgment is just to stop the crime, not
yeah. So this one, she's, like, realizing her powers, and she's definitely, like, embracing them. And because of all the gaslighting from Mastermind, she's embracing them in, like, a darker way. And also, like, Xavier is off planet during the whole, like, the majority of the Dark Phoenix saga. He's not even there. So
right.
Like...
But that's what, once again, that's the problem with having a movie that starts with two main characters and then, like, ends with Dark... You're right, Dark Phoenix should have never been the ending finale to this series.
Yeah, so then...
If that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, so basically, like, Mastermind, like, he creates, like a psychic image of Scott and kills him off. And it causes Jean to, like, lose her shit.
Right.
And, like, break free of Mastermind's hold and realize all the trauma that he's done to her. And because she's, like, she's, like, in her head witnessing, like, the death of the love of her life. So she basically, like, uses telepathy to give Mastermind the godlike power that she has, and it drives him insane because he can't, like, contain it. Yes. So then she's, like, super overwhelmed and all messed up, and she attacks the X-Men, and then she goes off-world, and she apparently, like, is super drained of power, and the way she recharges is stealing a star's power, which calls it a supernova and kills a billion people.
Shit.
Yeah. So she like comes back and she's like all confused and she meets with her family and she doesn't know what they think versus what she thinks they think. And she like,
okay,
and Scott tries.
It's a lot.
So Scott finds her and he like tries to like talk her down and like remind her who she is and that she's like Jean Grey is like made of love and like that she's not this villainous thing that Mastermind has like made her. And when he's doing this, Xavier like tries to like overpower Jean Grey and like put like circuit breakers in her brain to like blockade the Phoenix so she can't access it anymore. And it actually works. But then like all the X-Men are like randomly transported off-world to... I understand that this would be a lot for a movie, so I get why they changed a lot of things. But so they're like transported off-world because Jean killed a billion people and now has to go to trial. And the X-Men are trying to be like, well, she did this when she was like not herself, when she was the Phoenix, and so she shouldn't have to pay for this crime. P.S. Yes, she should. Like, she killed a billion people. So then Cyclops is seemingly killed, and again, because she's witnessing Cyclops dying, he doesn't actually die, it's just what she thinks is happening. The Dark Phoenix comes out again, and Cyclops is like trying to convince her that like it'll be okay, and she ends up convincing him and all the X-Men to just let her die because it's too overwhelming to live with the fact that she killed a billion people, and it's too hard for her to like control the power that's inside of her, like every second of her life. So obviously that's like a very different story.
But there's elements of it that I think would have been great to adapt. Like, she could have used her powers for good first before she starts losing control of them, right?
Yes.
Or, like, see, but she tries to use her powers for good. See, like, the extent of how much more powerful she is. She's like, oh, I'm not, this isn't what I wanted. Like
it's also just, like, inarguably, Jean Grey is the main character in the Dark Phoenix saga in the comic book. Like, she has the most lines, like, the entire story is about her and what has happened to her and, like, the emotions inside of her and how she's dealing with them or not dealing with them. And, like, it gives her so much agency. Like, this movie does not. It's all about, like, what the men's narrative and how she plays into it.
It is, and it's unfortunate, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think this can be stressed enough. You need women writers and women directors, like, in these rooms. Like, they need to be in the room where it happens. They need to have a voice. They have to be heard. Like, it can't be, oh, let me just find, like, oh, we have a quota to make. We need some more diversity. Let me bring someone on. Like, these women exist, and they have these stories to tell, and it's like, they're just as much nerds as any of the guys out there, if not more. So why aren't they getting this opportunity? And why is it this, like, this whole directing and writing is just one big giant boys club?
Yeah, like, Simon Kinberg, the director of the movie, literally apologized because it didn't connect with the audience. Like, what? Like, how about instead of that, you just hire women?
Yeah. I was not connected. Jenny was with me. I was laughing the entire time in this movie. I was like,
I mean, I think it's pretty telling that multiple directors in the X-Men franchise have been accused of sexual assault. Bryan Singer, pedophile. Like, it's pretty telling that they don't know how to write women for a fucking reason.
No shit.
But why are they hiring these people to begin with? Like,
yeah.
Ugh.
Good times. Oh my god.
Yeah, this was the first like superhero movie he'd ever directed.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and so it's like, I'm sorry. It's like, what the fuck?
I also think people blame directors for a lot when I think they should blame the writers more. But he was also the writer for this, so like you can blame him for everything.
That was one big mistake because the Dark Phoenix saga is a big thing to already take on, so to direct it and then to write it, bro, you need help.
And he wrote like the previous Dark Phoenix movie,
like,
which is crazy that they would have him write
it again.
Both.
Yeah, like okay, that movie came out so long ago, and the only thing I really remember of it is that you had the Phoenix in the movie, and you didn't use her like at all until the final like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was I don't know.
Also, really quickly, because I don't know which X-Men were on Magneto's team because they were just people of color who weren't named. But did they have the man fighting with his dreads?
It was his braids. They were braids. They were cornrows.
I'm sorry. But even still, did they have him
it was like a mutant. That was his mutant power, was his hair. I thought it was pretty cool. I actually did like that. Okay. I thought it was cool. It was very Medusa-esque.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering how he did his hair. Like, does he get haircuts? Like, what are you doing? You the
But also, I was like, why is he fighting Storm? Storm should be, like, reducing him to ash. Like...
Well, is Storm, like, pretty young? And these, like, maybe they don't, like... Maybe that's what because I know, like... I think they're like, oh, that's like the new wave of X-Men. So maybe they're trying to say like she didn't have her powers like fully like developed or something.
Because she's a teacher now.
Why? Just like I just don't understand why Charles and Eric are like 40.
They should be 60.
I just don't understand.
Hey, Michael Fassbender is just really hot, okay? Look, and James McAvoy was still really buff from Glass or from
Glass.
Yeah, he was still really buff from Glass, and I was like,
it was looking weird. Yeah.
Ooh, you're looking brolic, bro.
I'm like, why are you so buff for no reason?
Patrick Stewart and what's his beautiful name?
Ian McKellen.
Yes, are so good and so age appropriate. And it's just like, okay, like what is this? We all know they're supposed to be older.
Yeah, I think they just obviously Ian and Patrick are much, much older now.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I honestly I don't even care about continuity anymore. It's the last thing on my mind at this point.
Yeah. Also, I feel like they like had to make Jean like super evil for like whatever reason because they made Magneto like not the villain in this movie.
Right.
So they needed a villain.
Well, they had a villain with the alien-ish.
I don't even remember the villain.
We didn't even really talk about them because they came and then they killed that family that was having that nice dinner. And they like infiltrated the government and Jean killed her. Like, what happened to the rest of them? You just saw her, the one. You just saw Jessica Chastain. She gave her the Phoenix power, killed her. What happened to the rest? They just were like, well, bye. I'm not doing this. Bye. Peace out, y'all. Like, what?
I did enjoy how much they hated humans, and I did enjoy how they killed people. Just kind of like,
like they made that.
I'm making a hand gesture, which you cannot see.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? Like pressure points? Like what is?
I am not sure, and I did not like it.
I don't know. Weird. I didn't like that. It was like, oh, okay, like the aliens speak another language and they're evil. But
yeah, it's boring.
Yep, boring white men writing boring things.
Anything else?
No. I think that's about it for this movie. We are
the Dark Xavier saga.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the easiest way to support our podcast. If you leave a 5-star review, we might pick it up to read it on the air.
This week's review comes from Catherine, who is one of our Patreon supporters.
She's our patron saint of puppies!
Yay!
Nice.
We love you, Catherine.
The review says, "You ladies are wonderful, and this podcast is going to be so beneficial. Keep pulling out those inclusive, warm, and welcoming vibes. Also, Danielle, your dresses are amazing. I love mine, and I look forward to seeing you at AwesomeCon. This was written quite a few weeks ago."
Sweet baby angel. We love you. Also, Catherine is the best, and she brought us like all these goodies.
Oh my gosh,
AwesomeCon all weekend. She fed us. That's That's how you treat vendors, I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to chat with us about this episode and how much you also hate it, well, the movie, not the episode. Hopefully you love the episode. Our social medias are Fandom and Wellness on Instagram.
Fandom and Wellness on Facebook.
And Fandom Wellness on Twitter.
And if you want bonus content, you can join our Fandom family at patreon.com/fandomandwellness for Patreon exclusive geek sessions.
And remember, be kind and take no shit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah!